would sit in a car with her and I would ride and die for her, okay? Hey, welcome to my video. If you're from my Instagram, I love you, and if you're not from my Instagram, love you all the same. Welcome to Monthly Book Club, a series here on my channel where I talk about exactly what I read each month and what I rated. So quick disclaimer before I begin here, I'm never really here to bash the authors and the books. I'm just here to tell you my honest opinion. But with that, you have to keep in mind that art is subjective. And I think that if we have a difference in opinion, that's okay. Obviously, nobody's wrong. And I actually would love to discuss it with you. But I am trying to keep this a very respectful space where we do not bash anybody. Because honestly, bashing people and bashing books that other people like, even if that other person is not you, is not cool. It's not cute. So we're not going to do that here on this channel. But yeah, with that little disclaimer out of the way, let's get into it. So first I want to introduce you to my rating system a little bit, just so we know what we're working with. Obviously it is subject to change, but this is sort of the baseline. So we're gonna start from my average rating that I give out to most books, which is 3 stars. Now 3 stars for me means that it was a good, solid read and a book I wouldn't mind reading again. Now working backwards from that, 2 stars is below my average rating and 1 star is literally did not finish and didn't have an interest to. Okay, now we're fast forwarding again, girl. 4 stars, it just means that it was above my average rating and definitely a book that I will make time to read again at some point in the future. And 5 stars, simultaneously means I literally never want to finish reading this book because when I finish it, I won't have the experience of reading it for the first time again. And I can't wait to finish this book. I have to finish it immediately because it's so interesting and I am eating it up. Now, as for spice levels, this really varies for me. I usually give out 2 chili peppers and that's sort of my average. But let's break it down. So 1 pepper just means either alluding to stuff happening, kissing, or 1 to 2 maybe scenes, but that are very tame, very PG-13. 2 means multiple smutty scenes, but nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that I haven't read before. Now 3 means multiple scenes and some of them are very creative or are things that I haven't heard about and or read about before. And 4 and 5, I don't know if I've ever given a 4 or 5 spicy rating, except for maybe Haunting Adeline, the gun scene. And I think that's sort of the realm that we're playing in. Okay, now on to specifics. So one of the books I read this month is Clutch and Shift. Now a brief summary of the plot. So the 2 main characters, Amara and Leon, sleep together for the first time, one night only type of thing, and they really don't know each other. Come to find out, he's a crew member of a gang and she's a police detective who actually is investigating his gang for some crimes. And obviously, you know what happens. They get the hots for each other from close proximity and things transpire on. Now, I rated this book a 5 star for sure, and I couldn't decide between a 2 or 3 chili pepper rating, and here's why. So one thing I love about Brittany Ann's books is that her characters are always so multidimensional and multi-layered. So for example, the main character in this book, Leon, we did get introduced to him in the first book of this series, and at the top of the book, I already felt like I knew who Leon was. Certain layers kept unraveling, and by the end of the first book, I was actually like, wait a minute, I didn't know. I discovered a whole new side of him. And then by the end of this book, I was like, not only did I not know who Leon was, but this is such a complex, multi-dimensional character, and I really loved peeling back all those layers to get to know him. And Amara, the main female character, is simply a badass. I would sit in a car with her and I would ride and die for her, okay? I'm in that car asking no questions for Amara. Loved her. Besides that though, this author always writes a very interesting plot that sort of hooks you in. And boy, did it hook me in. I also want to say, if you are a lover of possessive / jealous MMCs, this is the book for you. Without giving much away, I'm just gonna say chapter 9 had me kicking my feet and giggling like a little schoolgirl. And then the badge scene, I needed a little fan because that was some hot stuff. So that's why I really can't decide between 2 or 3 chili peppers because I'm kind of on the cusp. Okay, now I actually have to stop talking about this book because if you let me, I could ramble on about it for hours. Let's move on. Okay, so one series that I mentioned in the first video is the Ice Planet Barbarian series, and I mentioned the first 2 books, which I am obsessed with and will read again eventually, spoiler alert. But we're here specifically talking about book number 8, Barbarian's Taming. So short synopsis, Maddie is the only human in the tribe who's left unmated, and she decides that she wants to have a little fling, and she picks Hassan, I think that's how you pronounce his name, although I also am Rysand girly, not Resand, and I know that's wrong, but I'm sticking to it. Anyway, she picks him, and they do end up having a little fling, but she soon discovers that he's not only fling material, and they end up mating at a crucial time for the rest of the tribe. This is the last IPB book that I've read. I've gotten up to 8. This series, I literally found out in the middle of me reading it that it's 21 books long. So I will not be continuing the series right now for that reason and a whole lot of other reasons, which too long to get into in this video. Maybe I'll make a separate video for that. What do you think? Let me know. But anyway, Barbarian's Taming. I personally rated it 3 stars and 2 chili peppers. So I liked the MMC a lot, and I did like the MFC, although in some previous book I did find her to be kind of annoying, but she wasn't like that in this book at all. And the romance between them is actually pretty good, and the book does have a huge plot twist in it that kind of changes the game for this series moving forward. So I do definitely think it is interesting. However, after 8 books, I do feel as though it is getting a little repetitive for me personally, in my opinion. And I normally don't actually mind repetitive. I actually find comfort in knowing what's gonna happen, but I had to switch it up and change a little bit. Maybe I will return to this series at some point in the future. Like I said, I will definitely be returning to book 1 and 2, but as for reading this whole series, I'm not down for that right now. Maybe at some point in the future. Let me know if I actually should. Like, I'm trying to know, does it get extremely sickening in book 9? Like, do I need to be there? Let me know. Next up, we have Lessons in Sin. Now this, I feel like, could be a very polarizing / taboo read, and I'm personally not above reading about taboo topics, but I feel like they have to be executed in a certain way for me to actually enjoy them. So anyways, synopsis first. It's about Father Magnus, who ended up becoming a priest because he wanted to shake his old life and keep his life in control in a way, and he did manage to do so until Tinsley came to the school that he teaches in, at which point everything sort of spirals and he loses control with her, okay? So for me, this was a 2-star read and a 3 chili pepper. So I don't really know where to start with this book. First of all, I don't think it's my personal vibe. I don't think it's for me. So there might not be anything wrong with it per se. I just don't think I vibed with it, and here's why. So I really didn't vibe with either of the main characters, not Father Magnus and not Tinsley either. Father Magnus, because he says that he needs to inflict pain on women to get off. That's the only way that he gets off. And that right there, just as a whole, is just really not my vibe. Granted, in the book, he doesn't do much of that. And once he actually starts liking the main female character, he says that he doesn't need that anymore. But that already left me with a sort of feeling of, maybe this book is not for me, so maybe I should stop reading it. But I actually didn't. I finished it just because I wanted to know what it was about. Now, regarding the female character, she's 18, and in my opinion, in the book, she does act 18, even though she's portrayed to be sort of wiser beyond her years. At least that's what Father Magnus tells her. So because I didn't resonate with either of them, I wasn't really rooting for them as a couple per se either. There is also quite a large age gap, so it's 18 and 40, I believe, and I normally don't have an issue with age gaps as long as everything's consensual. I'm fine with it. However, also the social construct of virginity gets brought into play. And so something about the combination of those two things didn't read well for me personally. But again, as soon as I started reading this, I kind of already felt like it wasn't my vibe. So I'm certainly not saying you wouldn't like it. Maybe this is your gig, and it was actually very spicy, I do have to say. But I personally couldn't really enjoy the spice because again, I wasn't rooting for them. But maybe this is your cup of tea. Next up is Owned by the Mountain Man. Okay, so it's about Cora and Huck, and Cora gets very wasted on a night out. Huck sees this and tries to help her out. Now, he's her best friend's brother-in-law, and he feels a responsibility to take care of her. But as soon as he starts, he discovers that he simply doesn't want to let her go, and he becomes crazy possessive. Now, earlier for one of the books, I said, oh, if you like possessive boyfriends, then this was your read. This, if you like possessive boyfriends, this is on a whole next level. I haven't read about a boyfriend this possessive before. I don't think ever. So first of all, rating. This is definitely a 3-star read for me, and also 3 chili peppers, as it was very spicy, very smutty. And I also think the book overall focused more on the smut aspect than the plot, but I honestly did not mind that at all. Although, when it comes to the plot, some crazy wacko things happen as well. So this might be a fun read for you. It definitely was a fun read for me. I will say, sometimes we like to read about things, but if they happened to us in real life, we would hate it. So for example, we all know the enemies to lovers trope. It's some of our favorite tropes, but if it happened in real life, I would literally scream. Like, that would never be an option for me personally. And why that's relevant here, you ask, is because the main male character is not only crazy jealous and crazy possessive, but he's almost just crazy, period. Something happens in this book that I read about and I was like, oh, that's not, it was a little too much for me. It almost took me out of the fantasy completely, because I really do not agree with his actions at all. And I had to keep reminding myself like, oh, this is fiction, it's fiction, it's fiction, it's fine, it's fiction. But again, I don't want to say anything, but let's just say there is this very polarizing trope in the bookish community that you either love or hate. And it happens to be in this book, okay? But normally, it's a surprise trope. In this book, it was a surprise to only one of the characters, and it's the female character. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. If you know, you know. If you get it, you get it. If you don't look it up. It's liable to make you a little mad. It really is. Also, there is an age gap present here as well. He's 35 and she's 21. So that's just something to note. Whew, this was really a turbulent review and read. When I think about this book, I can't believe some of the things that I read. So I think we should move on. Next up, we have The Tease. So this book is honestly about Jules, and she's always wanted something more in her life. And at a certain party, she kisses her dad's best friend and discovers that he is exactly that. They decide to have one passionate night together and then call it quits, but because work kept bringing them back together, you know, things transpired and they continued. So for me, this was a 3-star read and 2 chili peppers. So because when I started this book, it got pretty good and juicy right from the jump, I thought this was only gonna be a cute little fun read, but honestly, it had more depth than books with this similar genre that I've read before, and it did have some very emotional and sentimental, nice quotes and one-liners in there. I actually found myself getting emotional a few times as well, so that was sort of a surprise that I liked but didn't necessarily expect, and that made this book all around a very good read. And I did enjoy the MMC. He seems like a very sweet and caring man, so I was pretty satisfied with this one. So the last book we have here is Ignite by Melanie Harlow. Now, I've read some of her previous works, and so I was very excited about this one, and let me tell you, it did not disappoint. So first of all, little synopsis. It's about a grumpy firefighter dad who moves into the MFC's neighborhood with his 2 daughters, and they start having a casual fling. Now, we all know how that ends lines up, so I won't be saying any more. But for me, this definitely was a 4-star rating and 2 chili peppers. Now, this book was different in the sense that I have read a lot of grumpy single dad romances, but usually when you have a grumpy single dad, he's grumpy to everybody else except his kids. Whereas here, the dad was also equally as grumpy in front of and to his 2 daughters, but not in an annoying way at all. Like if I said that and you were like, wait, what? No, it's actually very funny. So I did enjoy that aspect of it quite a lot. I thought that was a unique little twist that I don't read about every day. And the book had some genuinely laugh out loud one-liners in there. And overall, just sort of felt like, I don't know, maybe a warm hug or a nice, good rom-com, but it wasn't only fluff. Because you know how the rom-coms are, mostly fluff pieces. That wasn't this at all. It had more of an emotional lining the whole way through, and so I did really enjoy it. Besides that, the MFC is really, really sweet. She seems like a great, caring person, and also the MMC I laughed a lot at and with, obviously, and the ending made me melt. Oh, it's a really good read. And with that, we're done. That was all for the month of February. Obviously, it is a shorter month, and also it was a slower month in the reading department for me. But anyways, let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about here today, and if you did, let me know what you thought about them. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!